So we are in the devs listened era in the Neo Gacha space, and I'm not sure if people have really noticed what that means for us, because it's an optimal time for gamers in this entire audience. And the Neo Gacha space is, of course, all the gachas that came pretty much after Honkai Impact 3rd that changed up the traditional model where the gameplay was meant to be autoed or skipped. These games had gameplay and polished to the level that you actually wanted to play the game, not just manage it and collect it and get in and out necessarily as quickly as possible. But right now, it's the devs listen moment. And so I really am concerned that the most powerful people in this situation, us, the players, the consumers, are kind of missing out on it. We're not seeing the forest through the trees and getting stuck in kind of a little bit of the rivalries, because this affects all of the space. See, I only, Wuthering Waves is my favorite game, but for one, I would love to play all of these games if they are really going to listen to me and make a space for me, and if I can trust the devs. And for two, even for the games I don't play, I want it's kind of like, the value of the league as opposed to the rivalry. Like, my sports team might have a rivalry with a different team, but all of us fans have to protect the value of the league to fans. And that's where I'm like, yeah, so I care about the Genshin audience, even though I don't play the game. I care about the HSR audience, because if companies are coming in and their direction is to make as much money as possible, I want that their path to success requires that they listen to their audience. That's standard across the board. And this is one of those moments, one of those rare moments where we've got them by what they care about, the money. And a lot of times people think that that's always the case. And that's, again, kind of really what I want to talk about with this video, because there's some things that people say that if you don't think it all the way through, you don't really realize where the power is in it. Like, two ideas that dominate the consumer side of the space, the gamer side of the space. The idea of voting with your wallet, right? That if you just don't like the way these games are, don't pay for them. That's true, but you have to do more than that, because when you just vote no, it doesn't really spark a change. It's voting yes where the industry shifts, because that's where you're going to motivate companies to do something. Like Concord's a great example. There's no reason to try Concord again because everyone voted no. But unfortunately, all that means is that Concord is not worth making. It doesn't say another game is worth making. It's not proving that it's worth the risk to try it again. And the real problem with the video game industry is that a video game itself takes so many different occupations that are so competitive that have nothing to do, in ways that have nothing to do with gaming, meaning that those devs can go find a different job in a completely different industry. So at the end of the day, if you vote no long enough, you just have to find another hobby, because you're essentially saying video games aren't worth making, as opposed to saying these video games are worth making. And that's the peak of when you vote yes on something. And of course, that's what triggered the devs listen moment, that the devs listen game, Wuthering Waves, its players voted yes in a way that never happened since Genshin launched, since Honkai Impact 3rd launched. And no, not the Love in Deep Space, not AFK Journey, not Nikke, certainly not Genshin, not even HSR, had a moment like Wuthering Waves did back in June. And that's why it was so important. That's why I fought so hard for people to not dismiss the revenue information, because the revenue report, like I said, I've been tracking it for years, because I've kind of been making it my mission to do whatever I can to try to get these games to be less expensive. That's a story for another day. But does the devs listening turn into more revenue or less revenue? And Wuthering Waves, when it came out and had 1.2 million people, and this is just on mobile, and it pulled $46 million, like, that was an unheard of response. And this was its worst market. This is the worst the worst that Wuthering Waves was ever going to be was its second month, right? Because that's where all the problems were apparent. That's where mobile was already struggling. That's where they were stepping on the various rakes, and that's where they were being exceedingly generous to compensate for that. So this is going to be the worst that number was going to the worst number that you could see was going to be the mobile market at that time, because they weren't compelling people to spend. They were giving away half the barn, and and a lot of people on mobile weren't even able to play it. And so for the people that made it through all of those rakes, they were spending like crazy. And in a sense that Genshin never saw. Genshin never, if Genshin ever had, for it's the minimum, if Genshin ever saw this kind of return through its entire lifespan, it would have made 637 million in its smallest audience, and it would have made 2.6 billion in a month in its largest audience, which is 67 million. That's how crazy these numbers for its active players are. So do you see why I'm saying that Hoyo took notice? They're not scared of Wuthering Waves. They're not scared of Kuro Games. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about they want to find the gold rush that was sparked. They want these people, because these people are different than their people. Even if they're the same, even if it's an overlap, the point is that there was something about this audience, what they're coming for, that they're willing to spend a lot of money. And so the entire industry is going to say, we want to find the rest of them. ZZZ picked off another 4 million. And you can see again, these numbers, unheard of, even to the great HSR, which is these are fantastic numbers. It's just that these numbers were insane. Okay. And that's what I really want people to notice, that even if Hoyoverse, which is a company that I don't trust, I know they're just chasing money, well, that means that they're chasing me, and that's fine. I want to make sure that they escape this moment knowing that your success, you don't have to be interested in me, you don't have to love me as a player, you don't have to care about the game, you don't have to play the game. You just have to listen. Like, that's it. So if you listen, that's the way you get success. And I really want to make sure that our community recognizes that this is that moment, to make sure that we reward that, because they're actually have them by the money, which is pretty much having them by the balls. And by reward, I'm talking about the audience, not the devs. We rewarded the devs with money, but we reward the audience for triggering that moment in the first place by continuing to listen to the audience. And so that's really where this is coming from. Our unity in the audience is saying that the voices in the audience matter. And a lot of times we're going to hear voices that we don't necessarily agree with, but I'm insisting that the devs need to listen to them too. That's why we're paying them, and we most certainly are paying them enough that they can make a room for me and a room for thee in the same house with $1 billion. So no, the whole game doesn't have to cater to my every whim only. It just has to leave me my space. So in order to demonstrate what I'm talking about, I'm going to react to a rather controversial video, Var's video about team building, and I'm going to reference some critiques made not only about the game, but critiques about Vars himself and his potential intentions and misinformation and the damaging effects that could have had. And for transparency, yes, I'm referring to Saint Tontas and Glaive Kyo's response and similar notions that certain voices need to be ignored because they are potentially harmful. In the worst case scenario, if someone is actively attacking the game with disingenuous misinformation, if that conclusion is 100% true, is there a way to resolve the situation without fracturing the community or having to discredit certain voices and then therefore reducing the power of a unified voice? If certain portions of the audience are dissatisfied with elements of the game, are there ways to listen to those players without compromising the integrity of the game for anyone else? I think so, and that's why I'm going to demonstrate. So, because most of the time, yes, it's not above my pay grade to tell the developers exactly how to do it, because I'm not leaving them with any excuse for doing the wrong thing with my money and then pretending they somehow didn't know who to listen to. So that's the goal of this series of videos, to get the audience to truly value a united front in this very unique devs listen moment that we find ourselves in, that leaves no excuse for the game companies to not listen to us. So there can be no confusing our voices as noise or enabling excuses with a "don't listen to him, he's an idiot, listen to me, I'm the best audience" kind of attitude. The answer to whom to listen to will just be us, because we make the effort to unify our voice, and I think it's worth the effort. And I know that as of now that sounds easier said than done, and that's why I'm going to demonstrate it in the next video. I'll see you there.